5. Usually David's running a little behind, so we can get going and not delay too long. 7:03.
Yep.
Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting on, what was that? 3 weeks ago? Wow. February 8th.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
I screwed anything up? Everything was okay?
Just the word liaison was misspelled, that's all.
Okay.
I mean,
Hey, that's why we do it.
okay, not a big deal.
Looks fine.
All right, motion to accept the minutes from the meeting.
I move we accept the minutes.
I second.
Okay. I think I gotta ask one at a time. Frank? You accept the meetings from that?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay. Dan, do you accept the? meeting?
Yes. Yep.
Jeff? Yep. Okay, and Tracy?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just taking my notes. Okay, so basically it's gonna be mostly Joe tonight. And he's gonna go over some building stuff and most of his DPW stuff, and I'll just hand it over to Joe and we'll go from there, and then we'll deal with our stuff afterwards. All right, go ahead, Joe.
All right, so thank you, everybody. With me tonight in the corner, I apologize, we're not set up to accommodate it individually currently, but Chris Pierce, our building manager, is with me. So we're gonna try to do our best Monday Night Football impression for you. I think, Frank, I think it might make sense if we walk through the DPW requests on the spreadsheet that got sent out. We'll explain, we'll explain a little bit. We'll go slow and stop for some questions, and then we can't do a walking tour. But Chris's group went around and took some pictures of some of the things that we list here just to provide some context. So maybe I'll go through that as like a step 2, if that works.
Okay. Do you want me to put the sheet up on the screen?
You can. Actually, can you allow me to share my screen? I can do it and walk through it.
Oh, here it is. Multiple participants. Do I just hit the one participant can share at a time?
I think so.
I think that has to be me though.
I am gonna, well, what if I make you a co-host?
That works.
You wanna make? All right, try that out.
Perfect, I'm in.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody see the spreadsheet of all the requests that were sent last time?
Yes.
All right, so I'm just gonna work from the top to the bottom. Feel free, if you got any questions or talk about, stop, interrupt. You're not gonna throw off the flow of anything. We'll start at the top. So for the prior year leases, as we mentioned last time, that 247,875 are purchases that are already committed to, that we financed, pretty similar to conventional financing if you were to get a car on your own on the private side. The only difference is these are either a 3-year or a 5-year payment schedule. So moving down, we have a 1990 John Deere front end loader. This was something that we had asked to potentially replace in last year's capital plan that got bumped out a year. We're asking for it again. One of the main reasons we're asking for it is obviously its age, but last year the motivation was that some parts were hard to find. And then the new wrinkle to that this year is we either need to rebuild or replace the transmission. And the price estimates that we got are just about the same as what the salvage value to the machine is. So we're respectfully requesting consideration on that again this year. Next down from that is a 2013 utility body pickup truck that our highway division operates. This is another one that we had asked for last year that we pushed out in lieu of some other things. This truck this year, the frame has actually failed to the point where it had to be welded It can no longer plow snow anymore, and the weight in the back has basically been reduced to nothing, just so the thing can be structurally stable to go down the street. Moving through, so the school department will touch base on the next item, which is the sidewalk machine. We heard Chief Scory go through the police cruisers. I think the group got his updated quote for the prisoner van. Continuing on down the list, the DPW has one more request for a 1-ton pickup truck with a snowplow. And then we're asking for an 1,100-gallon de-icing skid. So what that is right now we're set up to use a little bit of liquid pre-treatment for the winter, but we're using a 300-gallon tank in the back of the pickup truck. If you can imagine, it doesn't go very far. You're constantly refilling it. This bigger 1,100-gallon skid would be something that we would mount on one of the hook lifts that the committee granted us the ability to buy a few years ago, and will certainly stretch our manpower and be able to do a lot more efficiently. So before I get into any of the building stuff, does anybody have any questions or anything related to the vehicle section?
What is the John Deere loader used for?
You name it. So right now, it's because of the transmission problem, it sits by the salt shed and loads all the trucks, picks up the yard waste site. Anytime we have to move material or load vehicles, those are basically what's doing the lion's share of the work.
Okay,
Is there a resale, Joe, is there a resale market for the one we have?
Potentially, I don't know what exactly the transmission problem has done to that, but I would imagine a safe estimate is probably somewhere around 12 to 14,000, give or take.
Okay,
You know, for somebody that owns a farm and isn't going to put it on municipal streets and put the amount of hours on it that we would, they might be able to stretch it and get a few more useful years out of it. For
Would
us,
it be-
we're kind of at the point now, it's a coin flip. Either we commit some dollars to it and rehab it into a 32-year-old machine, or we move on and get it replaced.
would it be useful to keep it as a backup if we bought a new one?
Potentially. So if that was the case, that was to be done, I would recommend that is the only machine that works out of the salt shed. I'll know a little bit better. John Deere is actually supposed to come the end of the week and give us a quote on whether or not they'll even accept a trade for it. So
Okay,
that number might fluctuate a little bit, hopefully for the better once they come down and look at that and assess what's actually wrong with it.
sure.
So one of the other things I think David had asked for last time, and I'll follow up with a little bit more specifics, but I did ask the leasing company that we've used before in the past to quote us on if we were to take that and break it out into a 5-year lease payment or a 3-year lease payment. Essentially what that comes down to, if we were to pay that off over 5 years, your payment's going to be $57,000 annually. And if we were to stretch that payment in a 3-year term, you're looking at about a $92,000 payment. I'll send, when the meeting concludes, I'll send some more details with that and what the total cost change will be, including the interest rate. So you get a total. Is everybody good to start moving towards the buildings?
Okay.
Okay, so first off is Town Hall. I apologize, we don't have the number finalized for the siding replacement. When we get to the next step, you'll see the back end of Town Hall, some of the reasons why the Buildings Division noted this as a project that they wanted to get accomplished. Next on down the list is flooring. This is for rugs and the bathroom floor. Feel free to jump in, but in front of the town clerk's office is a very high traffic area in Town Hall. So the rug there actually needs to be replaced. We'll show you a picture. You can see the color difference. We stretched our dollars as far as we could and got basically right up to the town clerk's office, the whole entryway. We just want to continue on to the first floor.
There's a lot of frayed sections in that rug and a few drip hazards, so.
As far as the bathroom, we'll show you a picture of the second floor, has some asbestos tile that's beginning to get friable. So that would cover replacing that as well. Next on down list is ceilings. So one of the questions I think Phil had asked in the email, Frank, where this was going. So this would be up in the town accountant's office of conservation. And this price would be for a ceiling tile replacement plus the install of new LED ceiling lights. Next on the list, masonry and railings. So the back side of the building, we have the ADA ramp. One of the things that's happening is the concrete's breaking away from where the steel actually penetrates into it. It's starting to get loose and wear away. So this is something that we've identified and we'd like to address to try to make sure that that stays structurally sound. We'll have a picture of that too as we move into the picture portion of this. Next item, window sill and trim replacement. So this is for a total of 10.
Yeah,
10 sills.
Total of 10 window sills.
So basically what this is as we were doing the phase 1 window project, some of the ugly that came out of it when you started taking the casings apart was a little bit more than was originally anticipated. So this would be looking to just replace some of the sills and some of the trim that we weren't able to get the first time. Smoke detectors through town hall. This is a complete building replacement of smoke detectors. So these are hardwired into the building and into the alarm panel.
Right, and they came up in the last inspection. It was brought up that we need to replace them.
How many smoke detectors is that for?
Probably about.
For the whole floor?
Yeah.
The whole building, yeah.
Whole building.
So is there any in the basement?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tracy, that would be basement, the first floor, I guess, where the conference room is, and then the selectmen's floor, which is the second.
Yeah.
Next up, electrical service to the flagpole and sign. Our group just noted that we don't have a light on the flagpole outside. So if we can run electric out to that.
And also the lights for the Christmas, to light up the decorations. We have to run a cord across, and when it snows out, that sidewalk gets covered, it's hard to see the cord. And a few times it got sucked up in the snow blow.
So that work would just be to permanently get that on the ground. The infrared scan of the electrical panel. So I'm going to default to Chris on this. He's going to give you a little bit of a history of the electrical service to town hall and kind of where that was when he came in and where it's headed now.
When I first came in, it was single phase, the building. And the third floor, once we got going with AC, the third floor, you put a fan on it, wouldn't even spin. It's basically cooking under the parking lot. So I brought two-phase into the building, and which created a lot more panels. And these panels need to be checked infrared usually every 5 years. We're up now. Some of them haven't been done ever. So I'd like to go through and check them out and make sure we don't have any hot spots in the panels.
So a question that Phil had asked that we addressed before, he asked how many panels were in this building. And there's over a dozen, believe it or not. The building was originally intended to be a school. There's obviously the big, large panel in the basement, but the sub panels all throughout the building as the occupancy changed and offices were created and different things happened. So that money would be to infrared scan all of those in the building.
So that's a service we would buy from an electrician, or is that a piece of hardware that we would buy for the town?
No, it's a service they would provide us.
Okay.
There are companies that just do that.
So another question is with the electrical work that's here, the smoke detectors, I'm assuming that's one, electrical service in this panel. Those are done, they're not, it's an electrical company that you would hire to do that. That's not in-house.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's one of the,
Even though we do a lot of electrical work ourselves, we have an electrician on here. We also change smoke detectors out when needed. But to put him to a job of that size, he's only one guy and does the whole town.
Okay, because they're hardwired anyway, right?
Right.
correct. So moving on to the public safety building, the rugs, which I believe the rugs are for the administrative office,
on the
which
fire side.
on the
Yep.
fire side, which are original to the building renovation, or the building opening, I should say. So they've just gone through their useful life. They're stretched and faded and stained at this point. The windows in the fire side of the building, we quoted for 24.
Yeah, they're
replacements.
double windows, so it's 12 windows, but it comes up to 24.
And then also on the fire side of the public safety building is the VAV replacement. Some extensive work to the HVAC will likely be happening on the police side. The VAVs are not part of the renovation project. This is something that we'd be looking to do independent to that.
These are the ones that the construction in the public safety building doesn't cover.
Excuse me, Joe, what is VAV?
It's a variable air volume.
Oh, okay, so it's part of the, okay, air conditioning and,
So Dan, it's basically what's delivering and exhausting some of the fresh air from the building,
uh-huh,
or from that side of the building, I should say. Moving on, 5 Common Street, so it's similar to Town Hall. The siding is, you know, beyond its useful life and needs to get updated. As soon as that price comes in, I will update the group. That is one of the last things we're trying to get. Also at 5 Common Street, some of the windows, the only windows that we have not touched yet are the basement windows. You'll see in some of the pictures, they're not thermal pane. I believe they're single pane glass. So they're basically just an energy sieve.
Yeah.
And the last little bit of the windows in that building that need to be replaced. You'll also see, if you come to the back of 5 Common Street, there is an entryway into the basement. It kind of looks like a doghouse a little bit. Basically what it is, it's a door with a set of stairs in it that leads you into the basement that was converted into storage. I believe almost every town office has storage there, Public Works, the building department,
Plans are held there.
police department. There's a lot of plans in there. That through the years, it's just suffered water damage and different structural issues from being old. So we're recommending that get replaced. Also with that building, the roof, the asphalt shingles, it's time to get that replaced as well. I had mentioned last time, the plumbing in 5 Common Street, I believe there's no more renters in there.
There's one more rental left in there.
Okay. So
It's a dentist.
there's one tenant left in that building, but as tenants have moved out and we've converted old occupancies that someone was renting into public offices, we found that, you know, the cast iron in the plumbing as well as the copper inside the walls basically run its time and it needs to be replaced. It seemed like every time we did a building upfit or something to convert an office, that we end up doing copper replacements too because we found leaks behind the walls. Just sliding on, staying at this campus, 11 Lafayette Street. I'm actually going to pull that. That makes sense for the parking space construction for my group to handle as we're doing some of the paving projects. As we keep on downtown. It's all broken away structurally. It's starting to become structurally deficient. We also show a garage at 11 Lafayette Street that for the time being, I'm going to pull that as well. Moving into the ACE building. So the buildings division identified the roof as an area needing attention. As far as we can tell, that this roof is likely original to when the light department took occupancy. I believe before that it was a bank.
Yeah, well, it was the back.
And the bank probably had a ballast and weighted roof. Additionally, with that building, the fire alarm is a sore spot that gives us trouble. That is constantly lit up.
Yep.
In trouble all the time. And it seemed like over the last probably year and a half, I would say, we're getting calls out there more often. But a couple of different vendors look at it to try to troubleshoot it and make the nuisance alarms go away. And the recurring theme that we get from them is to replace it. So it doesn't seem like out of at least 3 vendors, anybody can find the needle in the haystack that's going to make that alarm cooperate. Also identified here, something that's been brought up by the ACE committee. I know the basement is susceptible to a little bit of effervescence and some water. Sump pump could be installed in there. That would be something that I'm sure they would be appreciative of. So next on the Yule School. So for those of you that might not know, the Yule School is an old elementary school in Greenwood that is currently being rented by, I believe, Seam Collaborative. So identified this year for the Yule School, I believe this was identified last year too, is the roof. So the roof to this building is likely original,
Yep, it's original.
original rubber. Depending on what goes on with that building and what the town's intent is, if it's going to be a long-term hold, it's definitely something that we should think about doing sooner than later. And with that too, the boilers, is some asbestos boilers that are fed from oil.
Well, thanks.
Those are the last boilers of any town building that run off of oil. Right now, the town does not pay for the oil. That is handled by the tenant, but those are also original to the building. Lastly, with the Yule School, the exit signs are out of code and need to be illuminated throughout the building. Just continuing on, we had mentioned, like we mentioned last time, so ceiling tile replacements at the high school, which I believe is in the
It's one of the long corridors that run to the building.
front one probably.
Yes, yep.
So really what this is, you know, these ceiling tiles are either punky with holes in them or been water damaged to the point where, yeah, they need to come out and get replaced. At the Woodville School this year, identified as a water heater. This is for the parts only. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe much like we did with the Dolbear last year, the building staff would be doing the install here. So this would just be to actually do the heater itself.
Yep.
Moving down to the Greenwood School. So in the alleyway, there's a problem with runoff from the building. So the request for some gutters in the alleyway to make that a little bit more user-friendly in the rain has made the list.
No, it's the grates in the front. These grates that run the front of that building. It's for the runoff, but it's the grates that run the front, the metal grates, those have to,
Oh, okay.
it's a picture of it, you'll see it.
This will make more sense when you see the picture.
Yep.
So at the Walton School, we mentioned last time the roof ladder, just a safe way to get up and transverse through the roof. This year for the senior centers, rugs and flooring have been identified. This is another case, much like the public safety building, where in the senior center, the rugs that are identified for replacement are original to the rehab, which is probably 25 years old at this point. Certainly before my time, and I feel like I've been here for quite a while. Moving into the Civic Center. So this top run right here, the asphalt roof and skylights. So the town was successful in getting a grant to redo the gym floor. Shortly after the gym floor was in place, we found that there were pinhole leaks that were starting in the roof. Over about 2 years of time, those have gotten to the point where they're starting to get worse. It's believed by both Dan in Recreation and the building group here that that's likely coming from somewhere up by the Skylights. Unfortunately, the price to take the shingles back and flash in the Skylights is within $7,500 of replacing the whole roof. So if you're going to go into that, you might as well just replace the whole roof at that point in time. We've talked to the historical committee about the potential of just removing the skylights altogether, patching them in and redoing the roof. They were not we're not on board with that suggestion. So what we'll end up doing, if approved, is to reglaze the windows, strip the whole roof, reflash the whole roof, ice and weather shield the whole roof, and give a completely new warranted product. One thing I am going to try here is in the state budget, you can also request an earmark through Senator Jason Lewis's office. So I'm going to be writing a letter on behalf of the town to him to try to include that. We can get up to $100,000 if successful to try to cover that. Unfortunately, we won't know until sometime over the summer whether or not we were successful or not. Also at the Civic Center, the mezzanine, so inside in the gym, the mezzanine is basically hanging off the wall. It needs some support brackets to make it structurally sound so that it can be occupied by people.
It's been closed for, since Jack was there, Jack Roberto. He deemed it not safe for people to go out there. So this will make it so that people will be able to go out there and enjoy the mezzanine and watch basketball or whatever from the mezzanine.
Additionally, at the Civic Center, there's a men's and women's bathroom, I believe,
In the basement.
basement.
Yeah.
It probably has not been updated or refreshed since the late 70s. It's certainly showing it its age. Certainly, the appliances in there aren't exactly the most energy efficient or water efficient. But this is also a public building that's used by the community, and the representation that you see in the pictures that we show is something that could probably be a little bit more flattering to guests that we're inviting into a place like this. As we go through this list, so we note a couple of things at the DPW garage. We note a garage door, a heater for a garage. Our ice machine is broken, and a transfer switch for our electrical panel. I am going to update these and actually remove these from the list. We have some structural engineers that are finishing taking some weight off of the roof and some of the mezzanines in our garage that came in under the budget that was originally quoted to us, which means that we are probably going to more than likely be able to accomplish these projects and not need the capital planning committee to fund them for us. Moving on, the nursery. Go ahead.
So sorry about that.
Okay.
Back to the Civic Center.
Yes.
I remember a couple years ago talking about the roof, and I think the roof was done recently within 5 to 7 years. And I think I remember this coming up because we were talking about warranty, and there's no way we can get the warranty on that. But it makes me wonder, what's the price difference between the plan to remove and mitigate the skylights as opposed to the 130 that's needed to redo the entire roof?
So, well, what we were at, so that building is registered as historic.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
because those skylights are up there, we had to ask. Typically, any
Oh, I understand. I just want to know the price difference between the two.
they're within 10% of each other. I'll give you the exact number. I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll throw a ballpark number out there. If it was at the time, it was $100,000 to flash in those lights. It was probably like 115 to redo the whole roof. Come to find out, the historical society in town weren't exactly in love with the idea of getting rid of those skylights, because they do change the roof line and remove some of the architectural features of a building of that age. But when we wrap David, I will get you the difference between the two there, just so you can.
That's okay. If the removal of the skylights was almost comparable to a new roof, I find that surprising, but I just was under the impression actually that those skylights were not original, and in fact were put in when the new roof was put in. So kind of the historical society. Sorry?
40s, those are old skylights.
Okay.
That was used to let light in when they used to store the tanks and stuff in there. Where the gym is now. That was the only source of light they had in there.
Okay. All right, so there is some historical value to them. I thought they were newer.
I'm cautiously optimistic that where Senator Lewis's office was very receptive to the gym floor project is that, you know, that building's really become like a community center. It will have the same attention, you know, to the request this time around, but, you know, that's some time ahead and nobody can predict the future, certainly not given the last couple months and years. Interesting to note, so the front rubber roof is a small flat front rubber roof. That was actually done last year. We did that through our operating budget, having the light winter that we did. The roofs in town didn't really take too much of a beating in the elements. So at the end of the year, we were able to get that done.
Just piggybacking off it, David, real quick, you know, with that roof being done not so long ago, I mean, do we know what the issue was and, you know, how to avoid it, you know, if we do replace it again?
So unfortunately, with that roof, when that was done, the town wasn't maintaining that building. It was run by the Civic Center Association, I believe.
Kind of like the library, they had like the trustees that ran the building. And they did the job themselves. We oversaw the bidding part of it because they weren't sure how to go about that, but that's all that we did. And it was probably more like 9 years ago that roof was done.
What year?
It was probably like 9 years ago.
9 years ago. Thank you.
Well,
Dan,
if it's 9 years, it's got to be a warranty. A warranty is going to be longer than 9 years.
I don't, yeah, I mean, on the material itself, but for leaks, I don't know. I mean, it's usually 1 year, 2 years on leaks, and material is usually 20 years or whatever on the architectural shingles.
I'll see if I can get in touch with Dan, and maybe he has a copy of the contract. I don't believe that it does, but just to do some due diligence and see if we can get a little bit more clear answer there. Visually looking at it, I mean, from the outside at least, it doesn't appear that there's any issues with it. Certainly, you can't see anything from the inside, which lends the belief to be that somewhere the water is getting in and it's following the lack of flashing and getting into the gym. It seems like where they're setting up the buckets and whatnot to catch everything that's coming through is actually in the area of the four or six penetrations via skylight. That would be something if that was to be a project that we would undertake, any of the flashing and watershed would be overdone to make sure that we're not going back up there ever again. I'd like to say that if we get a 30-year roof out of it, we get all 30 years. So if nobody has anything else on that, so just moving forward, another roof is in the nursery. Do you remember we did some siding and some things to that building where it was ground contact, it was rotting. The last thing we have left is just to replace the asphalt shingle roof there.
Did the paving
Galvin-
get done last year?
What's that?
The paving at the nursery didn't get done last year?
No, I don't
It's
think
supposed to be paving and fencing, but I think we took off the paving.
we didn't do any paving because of it being right next. We pulled that because it's right next to the watershed.
Mm.
So, but the fencing went through, and that was done. And then we overhauled the building, so like the T111 wooden siding that was on the ground that was wicking up the water has been addressed and replaced. There was some soffit problems. The insulation was soggy, just basically from sitting in the woods for years and years and years, kind of like a camp.
Mm.
The last piece to that would be this roof. So the galvin, so we talked about door handles. Do you want to elaborate on that?
The door handles that come in to operate the doors going in and out the front door are gone. They're beyond fixing. We've been out there 100 times. The door company's been out there. They gave us a price on doing a different style of handle. enclosure, just because of sheer volume, all the kids going in and out, in and out. And this is what that price is. You'll see pictures of it. We do have pictures of it when you put them up. You'll be able to take a peek at it.
And then, next on the list is the field house at Landrigan Field. You'll see pictures of this too. This is for new doors in the team room. I believe they're wooden construction. This was not included in the field renovation. This is the building that has been up in existence the whole time. I believe the field has been there. This was be to replace the doors there. The next one, the district-wide HVAC commissioning, that was the school request. So I'm going to just move through that, as well as the badge readers. We'll hear tomorrow from the schools also about the split AC units for the Greenwood School. And then I apologize, this is a duplicate on my part. The basement window grates here is the same thing we're talking about with the gutters. And we'll elaborate a little bit more on that when you can actually see it in the picture in a minute. As far as the Woodville School is concerned, this is also a school request. Our HVAC folks are looking to see if we can get a better number than this, but you'll hear a little bit more about that in detail tomorrow, as well as with the gym floor there at the Woodville. So just lastly, in the buildings piece, the BB library, if you remember, I believe it was last year, their only request was carpet. It came right down to the end, and that was one of the last cuts. This year again is basically the same request for carpet in the red and gold room, as well as to redo the plaza masonry and the parapet. This is something that our group does have boring scheduled for to figure out what the suitability of the material underneath it is and if it's actually going to support the weight of the plaza up there. The other piece that we need to talk to Dave Mason about, who is their maintenance person over there, is they're also asking for the front roof to be replaced to the tune of $250,000. I need a little bit more detail on that before I can give you a complete picture. But that is something that you should hear, if not tomorrow, but the next time. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to buildings, or you want to just keep going briefly?
Joe, just back on the Woodville rooftop AC for a second. How old do you think that unit is?
So this unit would be original to the building, which is probably 2000.
Believe it or not, our HVAC guy that we have working for us now actually did the install on that when he worked for the company.
So
He
you're
knows-
go ahead.
he knows the unit very well.
Okay. 2000. Okay, that's pretty far back.
So Dan, it's probably 20 years old. One of
Yeah.
the issues with it, that if it hasn't crept up, it will creep up at some point in time, is the refrigerant that is inside of that unit is no longer used anymore. They've moved on to a
Sure.
different one.
Yeah, but that would be kind of routine maintenance though, wouldn't it? That would, I mean, that refrigerant certainly didn't last 20 years.
Right, but there's pumps that have gone in it, there's motors that went in it. It's a lot. We've been Frankensteining it up to this date.
Okay. Frankensteining it. Okay. It's tier 2 anyway, so it may not come up. Fine, thank you.
Yeah, Dan, if you remember too, this was something that one of the compressors on this unit failed.
Yep.
And because of the way that,
Oh, it's on this unit? Okay, I remember this from last year.
I believe so,
Yeah.
we
that's the one.
Yeah.
we were actually able to replace the compressor on it because Michael, our HVAC mechanic, obviously is intimately familiar with this rooftop in particular, but the way that the COVID-19 federal money came, obviously you've heard me say it before, it was all related, most of it was related to air quality, fresh air, moving air. So this was actually something that emergency management was able to help get us the funding and to be able to do that last year. So
Yeah. Okay,
So
Thank you.
moving on. I put in the cremation garden. We've talked about this a couple times. I'm actually not tonight, at another meeting. I apologize. The person with the plan set only had the file in AutoCAD. I couldn't convert it to be able to present it, but essentially what this is construction of the cremation garden to add between 3,000 and 6,000 vaults for cremains. It'd be on the left-hand side of the main entrance as you're pulling in. And really what the goal of this would be is to avoid having to do a expansion project, or at least to try to prolong an expansion project further in the woods, getting close to the highway. That's something probably not tomorrow, because I think the school department will have most of our time, but maybe at our third meeting, I'll have prepared. We can walk through that so you can see that in a little bit more detail. In fields, parks, and cemetery, this next section down, ball diamonds, we were actually able to have the vendor come out and price us on some of the ball diamonds in town. So the original $75,000 number that we carried would actually cover a complete rebuild of the infield at Moulton Field, Sullivan Field, and both baseball diamonds at Marcella Field. So this would be rubbing out the clay and replacing it, leveling it off, taking care of some of the lips where the grass encroaches onto it, and essentially giving the kids brand new playing surfaces. We've also noted, at least at Sullivan and Moulton, that the team benches and concrete pads underneath them should be replaced. The school department will come in tomorrow and talk about the playgrounds. Those of us that were here last year obviously remember the Walton School was likely the next playground on the list. But similar to last year, you also see the Doyle and the Dolbear come up as something that the school department has identified as needing attention. Under miscellaneous, so the scoreboard with the cage, this is something that came up last year, got pulled last year, but I'm happy to report this is something that I believe we're actually going to be able to accomplish right now. So likely by this time tomorrow, this item, this $8,000 will be able to be pulled from this list. And we should be able to fast track getting that in for kids. The police department mutual aid radio, like we had talked about last time. Another one from my group is the GIS data application development. So the number we have here, we have $150,000 on this. We have 4 projects identified, one of which we had to defer the year that we split the capital. We were trying to fund this in 3 phases. We cut one of those funds in half. And essentially what this would be is beefing up our GIS infrastructure to include some more of our cemetery records that are on paper. Also some utility tie cards that relate to dwellings. This would cover a complete database review of parking, speed signs, speed limits, everything related to traffic enforcement that we have out there would be to capture and inventory it digitally so we can keep up with it and get it all off the paper. So that. And then last but not least in this miscellaneous section is an aggregate screener. This is something for Nahat Street. Essentially, it takes the leaves that get dropped off to be able to screen it and turn it back into usable loam and either use it in our construction or give it away. I can tell you this is something we probably use almost every day. Right now, we contract this out every year to the tune of $70,000 to $125,000, depending on what the refuse budget allows. By purchasing this piece of equipment, this would essentially allow us to be able to keep pace with that. And as material comes in, we can process it and actually move material out and save the town some money in the refuse. So tomorrow, IT will be here. They'll talk about the request for the library. Todd will be coming in to speak to you all about that. And then last but not least is the enterprises. Each enterprise has a prior year lease of $42,000. In sewer, we're looking to replace our Bobcat. We also have a heater in the pumping station at the corner of Water Street and Farm Street. we're gonna replace for the building. That's something that is original to a 20-year rehab. It's run its course and it's just needs to go. System improvements for $100,000. This is something we do every year. What this is when you see the trucks out there investigating the sewer lines and cameraing them, anywhere that they come upon something that can't be cast from inside or fixed without excavating, we would use the system improvement money to actually dig and fix whatever we find when we do that investigation. Then lastly, in sewer, on Spalding Street, we have a forced sewer main. What that is sewer is pumped from a low spot up to a high spot. We're asking to be able to replace that in its entirety from essentially where the playground is up to Church Street. And in water, we're buying one more pump for our pumping station at Linden Street. We need some tanks and pumps for our treatment plant at Broadway. We have $50,000 for system improvements here. What this is replacing gates, control gates in the street and or fire hydrants. And then $500,000 for water main replacements. So.
And sorry about this, on the water and sewer, you always explain it and very well. But just it occurs to me, the revenues that that support these expenditures, these are previous year revenues, right? They're not projected revenues?
Correct. So the 487,000 and the 875 that you see, our request would be to appropriate the money from retained earnings, which is
Okay.
essentially our free cash, our stabilization fund.
Yep. Okay, thank
This
you.
is this is already in the war chest, for lack of a better term, and would not affect the future year's rate at all.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So I know we've been staring at this spreadsheet for a little while. Does anybody need to look at anything else if you want to keep moving?
I think that covers it till we hear more from the other departments.
I don't think that is it. So I'll be a little bit more briefly this time, but I'll show you the pictures that we have to supplement some of this stuff. I will say if any member of the committee wants to see any of this up close and personal, we don't have any objections to giving anybody a tour at any time. I think the only thing, if we have a quorum, we'll have to post it, but certainly, you're more than willing to come see any of this at any time, if you so choose.
That is something we've done in the past. We visited the garages and the equipment to check out some things. Inspected trucks and loaders. And so, I mean, we really haven't done that over the last couple of years, but if anybody ever wanted to do that, those guys are great and they'll show us whatever we want. But they know their stuff. They're pretty well versed, and what they're telling us is usually pretty good. But if you want to see it firsthand.
Well,
Okay, so we'll be a little bit more brief on this, but feel free if you want to stop, please interrupt. So here's just an example of Town Hall. You can see that the siding's in multicolor. Some of the areas on it, particularly up here, this is punky, can't be power washed. This is aluminum.
Yeah, it's
correct?
aluminum. It gets hit with stones from the mowers. They can't be pulled out. We replaced a duct line. We took one out when we replaced the boilers, and we had to put a coffee can in there, a large coffee can fit in the hole. We couldn't find anything to put back in there for recovery.
What about the windows? Do they need to be replaced?
We've been doing the windows in series. We have the upper windows left to do now. For the next capital, not this one, the next one. That'll be put on for the next one, and then those will all be done.
So then by this point in time next year, all the windows in 5 Common, all the windows at Town Hall will be brand new.
Is this the only side that needs the work, or are we looking at?
Sides. It's this side, and then if you're looking at this way, it is the right side. When you first
Okay.
pull in the parking lot, the town hall,
Yep,
and you go to come around the back, that first side right there, where they usually have a garden going on there
okay.
somewhere. It's right there, that side and the back side.
So Dan,
And so the left side, the big, that length that runs back toward the Common Street building, that's okay, huh? Is that brick?
so you have brick, if you're standing at the front with your back towards the World War II Memorial,
Yeah,
you have brick directly in front of you, brick to the left-hand side.
yeah,
Your right-hand side is this wall here that you see in the picture.
okay,
To the rear of the building, you have half of the building is brick, the other half, which is the addition where like, this
all
is
right,
actually, this is the town clerk's office here. And this
all
is
right,
the-
I got you.
the
All right,
building
now I'm
department.
oriented. Yeah.
When
This
they
is the
did
one.
that, yeah, when they
Yeah.
did that addition, they didn't do brick, they did
Yeah.
stick construction and
Aluminum
inside.
Okay.
side.
So the parking lot's to the left of to the right of this surface.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
And then 5 Common Street would be somewhere over here.
Yeah, yeah, good.
We mentioned the carpet in front of the clerk's office, so you can see here, the last round of carpet replacements, we could actually take it to this line here. So this is actually, this mat right here is right in front of Town Clerk Sharon's office. This has become Grand Central Station, so everybody now comes in from the front building through the greeter.
Yeah,
Either sees Betsy, heads to the building department, or some of our offices to the left. And then right here is the stairs, the second floor. So I'd say 9 out of 10 people that visit the building transverse through this, and the carpet is definitely starting to show. You can see it's a little tough in this picture where they scanned it, but here's the original color, and then here's what all the foot traffic is done to it, basically worn the color right out of it. This is the bathroom floor that we talked about. These are the tiles that are starting to become friable and need to be abated and removed. This is on the second floor by the town administrator's office. This is just an example of some of the ceilings. So you can see the water standing in here from old leaks. This picture is a little bit dark, but these panels are basically gray now. When we're in here, this light would be replaced from incandescent bulb to brand new LED. That way, when we open it up, we get it as efficient as it can be before we close it back in. This is actually in the accounting office.
And you're asking 8,000 for that?
Yes.
Thank you.
That covers the cost of the lights, the company that come in, do the ceiling, the grids, we have some smoke detectors, stuff like that.
Okay.
The office is a large office. It's actually 2 offices together, the conservation and, what's his name of that? Yeah.
Kevin Gill.
Kevin
so the
Gill's
town accountant.
office, I'm sorry.
We mentioned the railing at Town Hall. So this is just an example. So you can see the railings in the concrete here. The concrete's starting to pit and chip. Every penetration that we have is starting to show signs of age. So this is something that we're obviously looking to get the railings out, refirm up the concrete, and put the railings back in so they're structurally sound. It's an example of one of the window sills that were identified. This is just some of the ugly hiding behind the paint. We started to pull them apart. This is an example of some of the hardwired smoke detectors that we were talking about earlier. This is one of your 12 panels that would be infrared scanned.
And actually remind me, so that's 2,500 just to scan one building I'm sorry, 25,000 to scan one building?
Yes, all the panels that are in the building.
How many panels?
There's 15 plus.
Okay,
I'll get you the exact number. We'll count them all in the closets.
So it's scanning to see if there's any potential issues, so that the 25,000,
hot spots.
all right, so the 25,000 is a worst case. As if there's
so I mean, I had to do this, you know, and it is residential, so I get it's different, but I think it was between 4 and 600 for one panel. And you multiply that by 10, you get 6,000. Maybe you have 20, that's 12,000. That's still half of the 25. But just that's the only reason that I'm
Yeah. plus
that kind of raises a flag to me for that level for one building, right? If it was for
well,
more,
we have
I
to
get
take
it.
the building wage as well. You have to include that where you're at a home. You don't have to pay for building wage, so the price is gonna be a little bit more expensive on that. But there's probably 15 plus panels in this building, and they're a very large panel.
Yep, the only thing I'm saying is that that's over $1,000 a panel.
We'll touch base with the electrical contractor doing that. And see if we can get the pencil to sharpen up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's good information. Thank you. This is just an example. So to the right-hand side of this picture is where the flagpole and the sign are. This is literally where the extension cord runs right over the walkway in lieu of underground conduit. And that's, so there's the flagpole there. And then I would imagine we're going to get electricity to the sign as well.
Yep.
Which will probably be a stub coming out of the ground somewhere in the area of the bush, hidden out of sight, similar to what we have across the street of the common.
But why does the flagpole need a light? Is there some state regulation?
Yeah. All flags that you fly at night have to have a light on.
But you said you're gonna leave a power pole box out there too, to power Christmas lights and other things that you're gonna put on the lawn.
Exactly.
Typically, even on the common, anytime we've ever done any electrical work, if we could add a locked power box out there, you know, just for the future, we typically will. Certainly when the World War II memorial came in, right behind it is a pedestal with some outlets and stuff. So we would probably do something similar to that here, just so we have.
That's not something you'd sub out, right? You got, when you had a chance, you guys could excavate for that and then have the electrician put the conduit in the ground, right? For 5,000, it looks like that's all you're gonna do, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably talking a day's worth of trenching and 2 4x4 panels at the end of it.
Conduit.
This is just a photo of, this is the administrative side of the fire department. A little tough to tell in the scan, I apologize, but the gradation of the color here, believe it or not, this is all faded and almost white.
Yeah.
Again, original to the building renovation that happened late 90s, early 2000s. Same thing. Here's an example of the dormitory windows that would be replaced.
The double window, the single double.
Here's an up close look at the VAVs that would be replaced.
That's an old one right there that you're seeing. And then the next picture, I believe, is the yeah, that's a new one.
I'm sorry, everybody. I apologize. I actually have a hard stop at 8 tonight. I apologize. I was late too. I think this was all we were going to cover tonight was the
Yeah, David, we literally have a couple more pictures of what we already talked about. I could send this to you. If you got any questions, just let me know.
that would be great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
This is a gasket. Right? Yeah, so in this this piece here that I'm kind of walking over, this is actually a gasket for the cover that no longer wants to stay in place.
And Joe, I know you said that you looked into these items for the renovations. And there's
This
no
is-
way,
This is one of the only parts of the HVAC system that's not gonna get touched.
but
We
it
went
can't,
to them, we went to them and we asked them exactly where they were doing it.
Yeah.
And then we took it from there and went through the fire side and picked up all this.
as far as the budget goes, you can't just, extend it a little bit, ask for a little bit more money under that project, so it doesn't come under capital, since you're doing the renovations anyways.
I think,
It's like a thin piece of bologna over there for that project. They're
I'll-
really tight on the money.
I'll default to Phil when he returns from vacation, but
Okay.
I think for the recommended funding amount for this.
Yeah. It's not that bad.
I think they have larger fish that they're trying to
Yeah.
fry right now and some of the other stuff. So it's just an example. This is actually the back of 5 Common. So Dan, Town Hall would be to the right of this. This is the doghouse that we were talking about. You'll see a couple more pictures in a minute. Basically, this is a really fancy bulkhead with a tempered glass door in it. Right inside of this is a set of stairs that plunges straight down. This
Oh.
aluminum ramp was added because the building was not ADA compliant, and the Board of Health moved
Yep.
into the first floor here. So this needed to be added on. This siding is also aluminum.
Yep, it's the other side.
Yeah, so this is
Okay.
also.
Yep. And this faces the parking lot too.
Exactly, that's. the
Correct.
one.
Okay,
Up behind this lattice is actually air handler.
Yeah.
For the air conditioner for the
HVAC,
building. And here's the non-tempered, basically energy sieve basement windows. These actually might even be putty and glaze. These would be the last windows in this building. So
Yeah.
this is
Last phase, yeah.
this is in an area where there's actual like building plans. So the plan set for the Woodville School, for example, is stored in the building department section down here. This is just another picture of that doghouse.
Is the inside.
So here's the inside. So all this black is actually water damage coming into it. If you walk down the stairs, and again, if anybody wants to tour it, we can. The treads themselves, I would say, are a little spongy. I wouldn't
ooh,
I wouldn't know if I would feel completely comfortable lumping a heavy load through here. You can see as you go through the first door, you come down to the set of stairs, and you're greeted by a second door here. There's 3 steps to the left, and then you're in the basement. This is just all texture 111.
Yep, Q111, yeah.
It's just an example of some more of the damage you can see. It's just showing you the roof. This is an example of the plumbing. So you can see some of the original cast iron. This is the problem with this. So you notice the copper here. Imagine a pinhole leak buried somewhere between these 2 pieces of pipe. It isn't exactly the easiest to get to. So by avoiding some of this and getting it a little bit out, a little more user friendly, would certainly help things go along with that building. Same thing like Town Hall. This is 11 Lafayette Street where the bricks and everything are wearing away from these railings. This is actually rust on this. At some point in time, this will probably rust off completely. I don't believe it has yet, but it's on its way. This is an example of the railing that's headed in. This is just a picture of your roof at 911 Albion, Ace building.
Hey, Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt. The railing, you just want to replace the railing and nothing to do with the rebuilding the bricks?
No, we'd have to pull the bricks out and repoint them, and
But just where it involves the railing, not, you don't have to redo any of the other stuff,
no.
any of the other treads or anything?
Honestly, Frank, if we were gonna do that, we'd think about pulling the whole thing off
That's what I was gonna, that's what I was saying. So you're just looking at the railing with this cost. What is it,
Yeah.
by, railing, $6,000 just to do the railing?
The
Yeah.
railing and then to repoint whatever's
Repoint all
holding
the
it.
bricks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, to do the whole set of stairs, you're probably looking at, what, 25,000?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think the fire escape set was in that wheelhouse. It'd be a little bit smaller, but the current inflation right now.
You think they're in good enough shape though, that we're not gonna be replacing the stairs in 5 years if we do the railing?
No, and this building, so this building is used, right now, it's used by IT.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. I don't wanna do the railing and then, 5 years, say, the rest of the bricks are falling apart, water damage.
If there was
Frost.
if there was any inkling of that happening in the future, we would be coming and asking to demo the whole thing and redo the whole.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, so from this threshold here to the granite curb in the parking lot, you probably have 8 or 9 feet. This building encroaches on the parking lot pretty close.
Yeah.
So if you were gonna take this out and make it more ADA compliant, I don't know if you have enough room without losing some of town hall's parking spaces to get that to completely fit.
Gotcha.
So this is just for reference, 911 Albion. We're only talking about this square right here in the middle. This is just the fire alarm. Typically, this is always lit up like a slot machine. So here, this is a concrete floor in 911 Albion. It was painted at one time. This is actually the paint popping up because of the moisture.
That's the basement?
Yeah,
Correct. So this is your boiler to the building here.
Yeah.
Some of the area where all this staining is essentially, groundwater that's gone in. It's just an example of some of the rugs at the senior center we'd be looking to replace. Again, original to when they did the renovation there.
that gets a ton of traffic.
Just included in it, we're just identifying, I know painting is an operating thing, but there's some painting that would happen in here. That would happen if we were to be beneficial enough to get the rug replacement. We paint first and do the rug second. Some more areas that need some paint. This is an example of something that's also on our radar, not included, but this is the front of the Civic Center. This metal, this lead paint that needs to be abated, and something that we're gonna have to touch up. We also have to touch up the eaves to the building. The flashing's starting to show its age. And then now that the inside and the roof is done and the bollards are up top, we can come down and do all the demo work.
That's the roof.
So here's your roof at the Civic Center. So these are the suspects that we believe are causing the leak. So unfortunately, to pull these out and reflash them, you're covering basically almost up to the ridge vent here and pretty close to the other perimeters of it. That's why, unfortunately, replacing the roof made the most amount of sense, being you're already committed to the price you were committed to at the time.
That's the
Mezzanine. So what would happen with this is there'd be some type of anchored bracket that would come off of this and structurally lag into the wall. The structural engineer would then be able to weight rate this, give a load rating and an occupancy level.
You'll be able to do that for just with the $15,000?
Yeah, I think it was 25 last year or the year before, right?
So we've already had the structural engineer look at it.
Yeah.
And give us a plan. Now we just need the funds to be able to put the plan together.
I think that sounds like a good price if you can support that and make it rated so you can have people on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be the goal. Then, I believe they used to videotape WBA.
right.
To be able to put people on this might open up an opportunity too, if this becomes more of a meeting space. WCAT might be able to get some stuff up here. That way they can record some of what's going on from above instead of floor level. And then I had mentioned the bathroom. So as an example, this is the men's room. I'm only gonna guess, but these urinals are probably
They're old.
Fenway Park.
There's
There's no
nothing wrong with
drawing.
those. There's nothing wrong with those urinals.
No dividers, no-
Although I think the subway tile is probably back in now, but
Yeah.
That's why some you'd see in the subway.
well, so this is a ladies' room. You can see the wall needs to be,
Effervescence is coming through.
that probably needs to be scraped and dry locked. The floor is punky. This, you can't really see the fixture here, but this is a real old cast iron sink. Same deal with the toilet. Just for reference, these are some of the garage doors that we'll be replacing.
Nice, for sure.
There's the heater at North Ave. And then this transfer switch, so what happens now is that there's an electrical outage. We don't have the ability to automatically have the power transferred. Somebody has to come over and manually get us back in action. So we'll be installing automation to that. This is your nursery building. So this is the roof that we were talking about. We cut all the trees away from it the best that we could, and we're not overhanging it, keeping the moisture. This is just the, sorry, this picture came out much darker than anticipated. Is just an idea of the boilers. All of this white on the boilers at the Yule School, this is all asbestos. I don't believe it's not in a state that's harmful.
Right, it's not friable, it's
To
still
anyone?
intact.
The only thing is if we were to decommission these boilers and change them, it adds an element to the project. We'd have to abate this and then have hygienists clear the building before we could move on to the next phase. These are all iron underneath,
Yep, the old iron boilers.
big, heavy. It's just another picture of it.
Get abatement for asbestos.
These are the exit signs that we talked about. These are literally,
Cardboard.
so these would be replaced with illuminated signs. So if the power went out, the backup could get you to the egresses. The
Would
hallways.
that cover all the wiring too for them? The 10 grand would cover wiring for those signs as well?
Yeah, my electrician would do that. He'd wire them all. put 'em
Okay,
in,
just through the drop ceiling, or would it be on the outside of the walls, or would it be?
Come out through the drop ceiling.
This is an example. This is the corridor that the ceiling would be replaced at the high school.
Excuse me, who uses the Yule School now?
I believe it's a
It seemed collaborative.
it's a private school. They rent it from the town.
Okay,
To challenge children.
okay.
There's your hot water heater in the Woodville. So
You can see it's not your average hot water heater. It's a large commercial water heater.
like we had mentioned, we'd essentially be buying the parts and then our staff would do the install, just like the building.
Those are the greats.
So these are what we're talking about with the water. So what happens is these metal grates sit in this concrete or whatever.
They sit in almost a granite frame. But what happens is now that they've rusted over the years, they're not safe to stand on.
So what this would be is to replace the grates and get a better, probably stainless steel structural lag into this to shore them up and make sure they stay where they're supposed to. this might be last but not least. This is
The
the
ladder.
general area where the ladder would be going. At the wall.
Those are the doors at the Galvin that need to have the handles and closer replacement. That's landing them.
So these are the team room doors that we talked about. So this was, again, not done during the field renovation. You can see, water's gotten to the bottom of this. I'm gonna guess that this door is probably 40 years old.
Yeah, at least.
Is that a garage door?
Yeah, that's one of the garage doors, and then there's
This is the
three,
garage door, and then
there's three on the side right there, yeah.
I think team room, referee is a little bit smaller, and then this is the home team room here.
Yep.
And then these are just the benches. I think this is Sullivan Field that we talked about. So if these are to be replaced, it'd be new aluminum or dipped metal benches with brand new pads. This is another picture of it. These are the ones that molded. Doesn't look that comfortable.
You're riding the fine on those up there.
So that is, that's basically the end of the pictures. I hope that wasn't too bad, but in lieu of taking a tour, hopefully that provided a little context.
Hey, everybody, and Joe, what do you think about maybe in, 2 weeks, if we did a field trip just to the town, like 5 Common, 11 Lafayette, and the town hall?
Whatever you want.
And we
Absolutely.
could
Yeah.
use that as an excuse to meet in person. We could say we're having a field trip, but then we can meet in person. I can run that by the powers and see if that'll work, but
I think that would be, like I said, so a majority is quorum, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you need to see it firsthand, you need to see it firsthand. But
I mean, there seems to be a lot of stuff just in those 3 buildings alone that we don't have to drive all over town.
Nope.
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't want to make you, have Chris come in again and lead us around, or have you lead us around, but
He's whispering to me he would love to.
Absolutely. I office out of town hall, so.
all right.
I'm here.
We can talk about that at, even if we did it on the, like 2 weeks from now, we can talk about it next week.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to wait, obviously here, the schools and IT, and then if
Yeah.
it's getting down to decision time, we get some coin flips and maybe seeing it, would
Yeah.
help make a decision one way or the other. Yeah, definitely.
Pick a day it's not gonna snow
And maybe Joe, we can ask Steve to give us what he thinks, his opinion on 9 Albion, what that use is going to be in the future. Obviously, Yule School, we know what it is. It's rented. That obviously doesn't cost the town money if it's making money. But 9 Albion, if it's just going to be a money pit, should we fix it up, or if it's going to be rented, or if it's going to be sold? I don't know. Maybe his vision on what he thinks that that use is going to be.
Yeah, so I know the ACE committee's done a lot of work with trying to take we'll call it the first floor, right? So at grade level with Albion Street, to make it a little bit more inviting, to have the public come in and see some art and things like that. But certainly maybe for him to peel back a little bit more of the vision of like the long-term future there might
Yeah.
help drive some decisions. So he'll be joining us at some point in time throughout the process. So I'll put that on his radar, at least so we can get him thinking about it. Maybe he'll give me some insight that I can come back with tomorrow.
That's if the town doesn't want to keep that, if like 5 years, it's going to be sold, unless it's pouring in the rain's pouring in, we don't have to do the roof, I would think. But the fire alarm system, obviously, that's a different bird, especially if you're renting it out.
Or
exactly.
even if you sell it, it has to close, it has to have a system.
Yeah.
That's right. That's perfect.
Is it ADA compliant?
No.
No, so that is something, if you look at the Albion Street reconstruction project that happened. The scope of that project was pushed just past that building because they part of the grant funding that they got, they're trying to come up with the most feasible way to make that building ADA compliant, which right now it is not. There's been talks about a ramp to the front door,
Ramp to the back door.
some sort of ramp to the back door. That is still a work in progress at this time. And then once you get in, I know on the grand wish list of at least the ACE committee would be an elevator, which doesn't exist. So even if you did have a mobility problem where you couldn't navigate stairs, you would be essentially confined to the at-grade level of first floor.
Would that kind of challenge be a consideration for the town to sell the building?
That's probably, honestly, that's a decision that's above me. I don't know. I know they're looking into the potential of community block type grants and different things like that. So I believe it was a grant at the time that got the elevator installed at Town Hall. So I think they're still going through the process of making sure every stone has been turned over to see the viability of that. You know, if they conclude or reach a dead end that they can't make work for them, then I'm sure that's on the table. I just don't think that the powers that be are at that point right now.
Okay, thank you.
I know that that's not a yes or a no. It's a very gray answer, but
PC answer.
A lot of good stuff.
What is our budget constraint?
so the goal, the initial goal that the town administrators delivered is 2 million is the budget.
Okay, yes. Now I remember that was stated at the last meeting.
Yes, now whether or not that is subject to change will depend on essentially what Steve comes and tells us or what Frank's able to get out of him when they speak.
Well,
And Frank, you see, there's a lot of stuff on this list, like the school department, a good example, they have what, 4 playgrounds? In my,
Yeah.
and we usually give them 1 a year, so obviously, there's gonna be some money. There's gonna be a big chunk come off of there when we only give them 1.
okay,
That's reasonable, as long as it's not a safety issue, you know, so what, yeah, they're asking for 1, 2, for almost $500,000 worth of playgrounds. And if we give them
Right,
50,000, then, you know, that takes a good chunk off, so.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I noticed that. The other, I see miscellaneous is pretty big. And, well, we talked about. Is the cremation garden something that can be postponed?
So we've been trying to fund this for probably the past 2 years. Obviously, the public works group, our group here, would like to see it go forward. It does raise the question of maybe is this a better use of some of the ARPA funding that has been brought to the town, which is certainly still on the table. It's included here. Just, you know, you never know how this list is going to shake out, but it's certainly up for discussion.
Okay.
Actually, speaking of the cremation gardens, was any of was it in phase 2 last year?
No. we
No?
didn't,
We didn't allocate it all because of the split.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
pretty much, so that was kind of the outlier. So the price to put that project in, with the exception of probably the 2 vehicles that Public Works had asked for at the time, that was like the heavy number outside of the Woodville playground. So that was an easy one at that year. By taking that out, you were able to accomplish 13 other tasks, you know.
Mhm.
Okay.
All
So
right, so we,
what is our next step then?
so we just continue hearing from department heads, Frank.
Okay.
So we're for the school and IT tomorrow. And then, who we met, we haven't heard from, the fire chief yet. And, if the library wants to come, Joe basically asks everybody. And if they want to come in and present their case, then we obviously would allow them to. What do you think, Joe, besides tomorrow, then we have the fire chief? What else are we gonna be, who else is gonna be visiting us?
So believe it or not, I talked to Chief Sullivan and he is in a good spot with his capital for this year.
Oh, okay,
He doesn't have any pressing needs for vehicles. We did some of the buildings issues that he had talked about last year, all got funded. So this year he's kind of in a holding pattern. So he won't be joining us. He didn't have any
Okay.
requests. It probably makes sense to talk to the library to get an idea of what their thought process is going to be. Should we find out that we can structurally rebuild the plaza out front, what they're thinking there, and then get a little bit more details for the roof. But outside of that, Dan McGrath, we've talked to him about the roof, obviously, at the Civic Center. But really, you know, the schools and IT should round out most of it. I don't know if Councilor Smith Galvin will propose anything. Sometimes the town council has something on the bucket list that they're looking to get tossed in. I haven't heard anything about that. So I think after tomorrow, you can start whittling through it,
okay,
or even now. So what I'll do when this meeting ends, some of the things that I said that we had the funding for, especially at like North Ave, I'm going to still show it, but I'm going to delete the recommended amount. So you'll see the live balance drop. That way you get a better picture of kind of now where we're settling into seeing some of these numbers come down.
okay. That sounds great. All right, if nobody has anything else, we're probably a long meeting tomorrow, and then we'll talk about next week. And maybe getting a site visit. I don't want to push it, but hey, they just makes us look good if we're doing on site and walking around and seeing things and just sitting behind our computer, looking at pictures.
Yeah,
You're welcome anytime you want.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have anything else for, well, for Chris anyways, we'll see Joe every meeting.
No,
Think that's it.
If you
All
do,
right.
if we
Thanks,
end,
thanks, Chris.
something pops up, don't be shy. If I don't have the answer, I will do my best to get it to you.
Good job, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn. Oh,
Second.
All right, yeah,
Second.
second, all right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow, same bat time.